Welcome to another Leon County Lunch and Learn program. Today we have Leon County Master Gardener Carleen Brand, and she's going to be visiting with us about container gardening. Carleen, thank you for joining us today.
Surely. Thanks everybody for stopping in. I want to talk to you guys about container gardening, my very favorite thing to do. You'll see, I love container gardening. It's versatile. They can be moved around easily. They fit in confined spaces. If you live in an apartment, you have a little patio, but you have to have a garden. There you go. Almost anything can be used as a container, as you'll see. Old watering cans, 2-gallon buckets. These are little plastic or rosin containers, little bitty tiny ones. One of my favorites, my wheelbarrow. It's almost rusted out, but it holds the plants pretty well. Choose your container before you say, oh, I'm just going to go and plant a garden, container garden. The terracotta or the clay pots, you can get them plain or colorful, glazes. They're somewhat fragile, and up here, when we get a freeze, sometimes they crack. Concrete planters, they're pretty cool, but they are very, very heavy. They're very difficult to move, especially once you put the soil in and the plants. Wood, I use wooden whiskey barrels. They're durable. You can get cedar or non-toxic treated pine. Brush them with some clear waterproofing for use in the outdoors. You can use metal containers. I use galvanized pots, galvanized tubs, buckets. They heat up in the summer and can cook your plants. Line them with garden fabric and place it in the shade. I don't do either one. Plastic, fiberglass, or rosin. I have a lot of those. They're designed to look like anything you want, but they're a lower price, they're lighter weight, they don't last as long. Mine usually last a couple of years out in the hot sun. But you can accomplish the look that you want. Now, repurpose containers. That's my favorite. And you'll see old baskets, tin or plastic buckets, watering cans, my old smoky, mineral tubs, which all of us have a lot of those, feed troughs, candle holders, my wheelbarrow, and my claw foot bathtub. Choose a container based on your climate, your budget, your space, and your style. Here's my style. Just a mess of buckets, a mess of containers around my sassafras tree. You can see my wheelbarrow in there, right here. This is my old fire pit. I even have some vines. You can't see them very well, but they're growing on my ladder. These are my plastic buckets. I have all kinds of stuff. Here here's a galvanized bucket, another galvanized bucket. This one's down on the ground, but I get better drainage on this one up on the CMU blocks. And here are my whiskey barrels. This one I have my strawberries in. This little container right here is where I keep water for my squirrels. They go out there every morning and drink a little bit of water. This one is in my front yard, and I'm not going to mention any names, but my best friend Steve Wynot hit this with the lawnmower and busted it. Container garden design basics. I'm going to make one of these for you. My stuff right here so you'll see. By applying the principles of color blending and mixing leaf textures and plant shapes, you can follow one simple recipe to create a winning combination. 3 ingredients is all it takes to plant one gorgeous pot after another. And it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. That's what they wind up looking like. And that's what I'm going to attempt to make mine look like. The first ingredient is the thriller, the attention-grabbing plant. This plant takes center stage in a container, serving as a star of the design production. It's kind of like the George Strait. All other plants relate to this player in some way. The others you'll see, we have the thriller, the filler, the spiller. I say the thriller is George Strait, the filler is the Ace in the Hole band, and the spiller are us. Using the thriller, usually the thriller features an all-in-your-face shape with a strong upright growth habit. Thrillers typically unleash flower power by blooming nonstop all season, or they unfurl dramatic leaves. Second ingredient, the filler, Ace in the Hole band. Complements the thriller but never steals the spotlight. These supporting players typically have rounded mound or misty shapes. Fillers also help disguise the thriller's base, covers his feet, his roots, and add colorful substance in the space between the soil and the thriller. Place the fillers around the thriller, between it and the pot rim. And then the third one is the spiller. That's us, the audience. The plant that trails over the edge of the container and helps tie it to the surroundings. When you're looking for a spiller, seek a plant with a sprawling shape. I have one here. I have a sweet potato vine. Leaf or color should contrast or echo of the thriller and or the filler. Plant spillers along the pot edges in the openings left between the filler plants. It may be a tight squeeze, but feel free to shove or shoehorn them in. And here's some, let me go back. Here's some right here. Here's the thriller, here's the fillers, and then the spillers. And again here, thriller, fillers, and spiller. And I think I'll take this time to make one really quickly. Get all my gadgets here. I want to also take a moment to thank Ginger at Bobo's Nursery. I went to pick up my plants yesterday and she kindly offered these to us, donated them to the Master Gardeners, and we really appreciate that. Bobo's does a lot for Master Gardeners. Inside this pot, you'll see in just a few slides, but I want to show you. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Inside the pot, I have rocks. Always try to put rocks in the bottom of your pot for drainage and so the soil doesn't leach out. I have these also, kind of like little chairs. They're fillers. Put them in there, you don't use as much soil, and it helps also for drainage. I have my nifty soil here. I'll put some in. Try not to make too much of a mess. But that's why we like to teach kids how to garden. They love to make a mess. They think that they're just playing in the dirt when they're learning so many things. They're learning about the goodness of God and how He makes all of our food just out of a couple little bitty seeds. And this, magic. Okay, take a little Osmocote. Ginger said to use some of this. Put a little bit in there. You don't need very much. Mix it up a little bit. Put a little more soil in. You can use, I use that BM1 soil from Bobo's. You can use Miracle Grow. I use potting soil. I put a little bit of vermiculite or perlite in it and sand out of my yard. I have nothing but sand, so I put some of that. And works like charm. Okay, this is my George Strait. This is a thriller. Make sure that all your roots are, to the best of your ability, are unhooked and easily able to pull it out. Squeeze it a little bit. Go my George. There he is. Break this up a little bit. By all these white roots, you can tell that it's a very healthy plant. in there. There's my thriller. Now I have Mexican heather. This is a very, very good plant to plant around here. It grows like crazy. You don't have to do much with it. Put it in one spot and you'll have it in 10 spots. Make it a mess. Stuff it in there. See, it's already covering some of the thriller's base. I'll put this taller zinnia in the back. Once again, squeeze it, make sure you don't break any of the roots. Very, very healthy plants. And then they get manhandled by me. Stuff it in there. There's one. Two. Oh yeah, looking pretty. Get in there. I just feed. Okay, and then here's my spiller. Here's the audience. This is a sweet potato vine, and it goes crazy. All you do is just stick it in the ground, give it a little bit of water, and you'll have it all over the place. Look at that, how pretty. Stuff it in just like they said. You can squeeze it, stuff it, shoehorn it. Now mine really doesn't look exactly like those just yet. Put a little bit more soil in there, give it some water, and give it a little bit of time for those plants to stretch their toes, and it'll be beautiful. Now because I didn't put any fillers in the back part of this plant, this might be one that you put on a table or like on an end cap or something, so nobody sees the back of it. Or you can always just go out in the yard, pull up another flower or two and stick it in there. There you go, and just like that, I'm done. You have a thriller, filler, spiller. Give it a little bit of juice here. And there you go. Easy as that. That's all there is to gardening. Playing in the soil, playing in the dirt. Planting in a container. The amount of soil that you need, as I showed you here, you don't need that much soil. You don't have to fill this whole pot up with soil. Maybe 6 inches more in depth than the pot that it came in. So, see, just a little bit more than that is perfect. Put this back here. You can fill the rest of the pot with styrofoam pellets, like those little peanuts, I call them. Smaller plastic pots like I did here, and or rocks. I always put rocks in mine at the bottom. It prevents the soil from leaching out. It's really, really good for drainage. If you don't have the rocks in there, all that soil can compact and your plant might get root rot. My mixture is potting soil, sand, a little bit of sand, a little bit of perlite or vermiculite, and it's worked well. You'll see all my pots, they have all this in there. You'll need to water these container plants a little more than if they were in the ground because of evaporation. Try not to overwater. Guilty. I can't tell you how many plants that I have overwatered to the point they're saying, I'm drowning, I'm drowning. This is what I just showed you in the bottom of this pot. Here are the rocks that I always put in, and the little containers, little plastic containers. You just flip them upside down. Works fine. Container veggies. Most vegetables can be grown in containers. Tomatoes, peppers, potatoes, cucumbers, don't like cucumbers, eggplant, and squash all grow well in containers. Herbs that are well suited for summer container gardening are parsley, sage, thyme, cilantro, rosemary, oregano, and then again, here's one of my favorite gardens, the modified container garden, the raised beds. Here's my potatoes I planted not very long ago. These are in regular pots, plastic pots. This is half of a 55-gallon drum. Here's one of my raised beds, but it's a container. It's a feed trough. I have a long feed trough here, one not so long here. This is my Italian squash, my friend Kathy. It's my cucuzza plant. And this is my gourds. I have loofahs and large gourds growing here. And now, I took this last week, and the cucuzzas are already over the top, and the gourds are almost to the top now. Here are more of my feed troughs. This, my husband built me, beloved James Brand, built me this. Oh, it's probably about 5 years old now. And I plant tomatoes in it one year, and then I put peppers, and then I put my okra, and then I switch back. It gets a lot of sun and does well. These are my raised beds that James built me out of 55-gallon drums. Cut them in half, long ways. Put them on, I think they're on 2x6s with 4x4 posts. I have most of my vegetables in here also. Tomatoes, I planted onions in here, just pulled my onions up. Did very well. More tomatoes, bell peppers, and here's marigolds, and this is always my sunflower spot. In this bed, it's not really a container garden per se, but it's 1 foot off the ground. All along here is my okra. In the middle is my yellow squash. And then along this edge is my corn, all planted from seed. Once again, all you need is soil, seed, water, and God's sunlight, and you can eat. This little bucket, one of my old tenants was going out of business. It is a bucket from a nail salon, pedicure bowl. She gave me about 10 of them. I took them home. Had my husband drill holes in them. I have planters. I have my hydrangeas in them. This is just an old bucket that I had, old planter. It's all beat up. I have this pineapple growing. In fact, that's where I got these two little slips. I broke them off. They were growing right here. And you just break them off and stick them in the soil. In 14 months, they should bear fruit. I took this pineapple top off of a pineapple, just snapped it off, cleaned it off, put it in water, rooted. It took about maybe 2 weeks to root, stuck it in a pot, and 2 years later, it's this big with a pineapple. I'm not going to get rich by growing pineapples, but at least I'll have a couple every year. My 2-gallon buckets again. This is my Confederate rose plant that I broke off one of my original plants, and it's doing well. This is my old smoky. This is my mosquito plant. What is that?
Citronella?
Citronella, yes. And this is my my jasmine. And there again, there's one of my buckets from the nail salon that I use as a base. You can use anything that you can find as long as it holds soil and you can drill holes in it. You can make a planter. You'll see I do. These are candle holders. I just had some jute rope, jute string, I tied them onto my fence, that's some coconut basket. I cut a little piece of it, stuck some dirt in there, planted my little airplane plants. They're doing well. Here's again, just all different types of little plastic buckets, little plastic pots. Here's this one right here, one just like it. Again, hibiscus. Right here is my avocado. It's 9 feet tall now. grew from a seed. Here's my bathtub I was telling you about. I have these little flowers just pop up every single year. I have jasmine growing in it, and it smells so wonderfully in the springtime. Here's another mineral bucket. I have gladiolas and zinnias, and I think I have one or two little oak trees in it. More mineral buckets with my roses in them. When you're planting in containers, be careful what you wish for. I started with that, a little bitty avocado, simple little avocado seed, so cute. And now I have a 9-foot tall avocado tree. This was last winter when it was still in my greenhouse. You can see how it's bent over. It got too tall, so we took it out, and now I have it tied up in the yard. I don't know what I'm going to do with it this year. And that's everything else that I put in my greenhouse in the wintertime. I just have to stuff it all in because I have, right now, well, not counting these two new babies and this one, I have 56 containers that I have to bring inside over winter. Some kind of way I have to fit them somewhere, and they will not fit in my greenhouse this year. As you can see, this is my motto: let your imagination run wild. With a little improvisation, anything that will hold soil and can be drilled at the bottom for drainage can become a planter. There you go. There's a water trough. And I was just telling Richard that I have 2 donkeys, and they have a water trough just this size. And I was so excited that last week I went to check. I check their waters every couple of days, my donkeys and my cows, and theirs was leaking. There's a little seam right here on the other side. It was starting to rust, and it was dripping water. My husband wasn't as happy as I was, but he knew as well as I did what that meant. I have another planter. So I'll be using that one. I think I might put sunflowers in it. Here are a couple other ideas. These aren't mine, but you can, again, you can use anything. Boots. I use my old rubber boots. Once they get wore out, dry rot, I put plants in them. Here's a hanging basket, a hanging strainer. And I wish I'd have thought of this before I got rid of my dresser. Here is an old dresser, it looks like, with plants in it. And this, can you imagine, is a plant stand. It has a plant in it. I would have never thought of that. This is my backyard. Ma's Meadows at night. There's all my plants. And there's to my grandkids. And that's all I have. You have any questions for me?
No questions coming through yet, but if you do have a question, please go ahead and submit them on the Facebook Live chat feature. But I've got a question. What's the most unusual thing you've ever used as a container?
My husband had an old straw hat that he really, really liked, and it got a little hole in it. So I just took it outside and turned it upside down, put a plant in it. I have a strainer also, just like that one, similar to that one. That was my daddy's. And my daddy passed away a few years ago, and so I'm going to put that, incorporate that as a hanging basket in my yard for my dad.
So if anybody does have any questions, please type them in on the chat feature, and okay, here's a question. Do you put more holes in the cattle waterers for drainage?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. You have to, because right now, other than the little rust hole that I'm so grateful for, all it has is the one small drain hole on the side. So I make sure I have my husband drill probably 10 more holes in it.
What size holes does he drill?
Maybe a quarter size.
Okay. Any other questions for Carleen? You mentioned your grandkids, so do you do
Yes.
any of this whenever they come to visit? Do you do any container gardening with them?
I do. I do. I had the last couple of times they were here, I had wood pallet containers, and I had them paint them. Then we flip them over and put plants on top of that. So they're not planters. They're tables for my planters. We did acorns one year for the oak trees. They did that in the wintertime, and then they came back in the fall, and we planted those little oak trees.
All right, well, I'm not seeing any more questions come through, so Carleen, great job. Thank you for providing us information about container gardening today. And I want everyone to realize that she's just not regurgitating something she read in a book or in a pamphlet. As you can see from the pictures, she actually practices what she preaches. She is the container gardening queen. So thank you, Carleen, for your
You're welcome.
presentation.
Thank you very much.